Hey guys, we're back once again, this time for ink lines, part 3. This is everyone's favorite thing to do. It's super therapeutic, so we're going to start from where we left off. I actually saw a lot of problems, so I went back to basic shapes with the head, decided to do some red correcting lines and just get the shape right. I'm like, man, let's get it right. Let's like what we were drawing here and move on. And so I get the shape right, find where the hairline now goes. Again, I'm redrawing the hair and stuff like that. And this stuff is fairly, easy to do. Just trying to figure out, what looks best. Where does nose really go? Where do the eyes really go? Where do the ear fall? Where am I at perspectively? How do I push that and exaggerate that in the way in this style? So I decided that I like those lines. I dropped everything down to a transparent layer and started to do the ink lines. Let's hear. Yep. Going in, just making quick lines, and I'm still being loose with this. I don't want it to feel like I'm trying too hard to draw these things. I just want them to feel like loose, especially if they go to animation. I don't want them to be super crazy things to draw. So just being loose with the lines. Right now, I'm still figuring out things I want. I want to be able to see stuff. Maybe an accident turns into something that is a character trait. Let's find it. Let's have some fun with it. I made her hat originally a little too rounded, folded, more like Frank, but I decided to give her hat some like her own like distinct character. And just started to draw the hair. Kind of looks like how Elsa's hair comes up a bit. I like that. Just kind of figuring out how I wanted the ponytail. The first one I drew was fine, but I drew 5 or 6 more just to figure out what is that really? Trying to figure out the eyebrow here. I found a few that I liked. Then I liked trying to find the thickness. And I wanted her to feel really cute, but kind of like, she has the penciled eyebrow. So I like that. And then I went ahead and copied it, flipped it, skewed it. And the poor man's way of not having to draw it again. But I probably could have drawn it again better in half the time. But I'm trying to use digital art tools and seeing how those could help me, if they can't help me, or if they're more time consuming than not. So I went ahead and did it. And then I draw the lips and all this stuff. I mean, it's just going back over the lines that we created in the last two portions of this. And for me, it's just finally maybe I can really put that line down. That's what you want to do when you first like put pen to paper. The thing that you want to do is just put that line down and make it permanent. But once we have a guide, like create the character, when we put that line down, it feels so much more satisfying. And then changing it, making those a little perkier, having the shirt kind of flare out a little bit in a way that makes it look a little dreamy. I mean, like that kind of stuff is fun to draw. Now I'm going in here and I'm seeing, I should correct this pose a bit. Bring that elbow up a bit and the hand up. And that's what fixed the pose. Her back needed to come back a little bit, or it needed to taper in a little bit more. So instead of having to draw that, I just put her hand there. And now you don't know where her back lands. And so the pose doesn't feel unbalanced. And that's all it needed to fix that pose from our trials all this time. Now I'm feeling really good about the rest of the pose, but there's still one thing I haven't got to in this pose yet, and that was the feet. And that I was trying to do 100 different things with them. The drawing actually didn't come out that bad for the feet originally, but then I'm like, oh, maybe I'll go back to the heels. Then I fixed the knee right there. That's what really solidified her sturdiness, and the heels were there, but I wanted to go to a wedge, and then I didn't like how that shoe fit. And now I'm just trying to fix it. So I spent a little bit of time saying, okay, once and for all, this is the last stage of the drawing. It's now or never. I'm either going to fix it to something that I like, or I'm going to leave it at something I don't like. And I decided to go ahead and try to fix it I tried a few different things. I thought about putting a heel in it. Then I'm like, and then for a while I let that sit, and then I'm like, no, I think we should go back to that wedge. And that's about it. I mean, I didn't want it to be too complicated. I'm once again trying to figure out what perspective I'm putting her at. Then I forgot, okay, do I have her foot sitting directly profile? But I couldn't remember what I wanted to do. And the truth is that pose needed to have the foot bring in a little more closer. The heels needed to be together in that pose. I think it's why the pose didn't feel as sturdy as it should have, because the heel should have came in closer. So now that I'm realizing that, I'm trying to push everything back towards the other heel and make the heels feel like they're closer together. Now, I could have probably turned this other girl's foot out a little more and moved the hip back, but I wanted to show that relationship with her, between her thigh and her butt. But here we are. So I'm decided to, if I can't bring that heel back more, what I'm gonna end up doing is giving her more of a platform on the shoe, which would allow her to stand more spaced out and not look unbalanced. Going back over the hair, found something I liked, decided that I needed to work on the feet a little bit, but then I said, oh man, I like what I did with the hair. Let me just clean it up a little bit. I decided to get back in there, cleaned up the garment stuff. Yeah, and then just cleaned up the hair. I really enjoy doing the pin stuff. It's like, for most people, when they see the line kind of come together, it's when the drawing feels like, oh my God, it's a drawing now. But I learned to cherish the other steps in the process, and I think that's what ends up making the drawing good. If you could just discover what you're trying to draw, the emotion, what you're trying to draw, who you're trying to draw, what you're trying to draw, and remember some basic stuff. I went back here and just tried to find what was wrong with my perspective on the hat. Even Frank's hat's a little messed up, but Frank has a bit more of a cartoonish vibe to him than this girl. But of course, they're all cartoons. So I'm figuring out how's the hat gonna flip up for her? Is it gonna hang low? Is it gonna stretch out a little more? First, I was like, okay, she's gonna have it flat bill hat, and she's kind of like hood maybe. But then I'm like, maybe she's more of an all-American cowgirl. You know what I mean? And just does what she needs to do. So I decided to bend it more baseball style. And I went in here and I cleaned up the hair, added some little neck marks, just really basic stuff. I'm still creating the character, discovering things I like, I don't like. Going in and out of there, I decided to make that line different. And then once I did that and I made this kind of curve, it gave the top of her head a little volume, and I loved that. I was like, finally. It feels like her forehead's in there and the hat's on her head. All these lines would be erased. This whole hat goes black. And I'm enjoying that, and I think that's pretty good. I'd probably go back in there, clean these hat lines up, get the perspective just right. Besides that, I think that's the character I like. That's her. And she fits in our world. Let's color her. I think it's time for a little splash of color. All right, guys. It has been, once again, a pleasure. And remember, if you want to see any of these live drawings, I am hanging out on Twitch, mrjangleslA, for most of the quarantine, because, you know, here we are. I'm share a little something with you guys. All right. See you next time.